The business of medicine is constantly changing. The review by Resolve discusses current contract issues for physicians, compensation trends, and tips for a successful career. Every physician's contract and career is different, and nothing in this episode should be considered legal advice. If you have specific questions about your career, please consult with an attorney. Now, on to the show.
Welcome back to The Review, the podcast where we talk all things physician contracts. Here today with Brady Glissendorf, one of the healthcare attorneys on our team. Thanks for coming on, Brady.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Yeah. All right. Well, so today we're going to talk about how long physician contracts are.
Sure.
We've got clients that, will come to us and they'll say, well, hey, I can't renegotiate because I've got a 3-year contract. Walk us through the basics of what a normal term of a contract looks like.
Sure. Yeah, I think this is something that oftenly gets overlooked, but when you look at the term of the contract, you'll often see maybe an initial term for a certain amount of years, but the big caveat to that is how they structure the renewal process, and whether it's automatically renewing or if there's actually an end date to the contract.
Sure.
And that's the big thing you want to watch out for. So it could realistically kind of theoretically go on indefinitely, or it could have a specific end date. Okay.
So when they first, let's back up. What's the most common term that you see? Is it 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? Like when the language is there, what are you seeing?
Normally I see maybe a 2-year initial term. Okay. It can vary, but I think that's probably the more often scenario.
Okay. So 2-year contract, let's use that as the example. Yeah. The question is whether or not there's a specific end date. So what does the language look like if it's going to auto renew as opposed to just end?
Yeah, so the most common term you'll probably see is automatically renew. That's kind of the term that I normally will see, and that's where it's often kind of just placed in there where you don't really think about it, but it's after that initial term, and then thereafter automatically this contract will automatically renew for subsequent 1-year periods until either side decides to terminate.
Sure. So initial 2-year term renews for 1 year after that. Yeah. Does that mean that physicians can't get out of the contract during the first 2 years?
No, usually when you should always have this ability, looking at the without cause termination ability, for you to be able to terminate the contract at your convenience based on some notice period that they've got in the contract. Okay. Not every contract will have that, but you do want to always make sure that that is actually included.
Gotcha.
But you should always have that freedom to be able to terminate that contract whenever you would want to, as long as you provide enough notice. Okay.
So the term of the contract sets out, this is generally how long we want to contract with each other. However, if something isn't going well, right, there's still this mechanism, hopefully, in the contract to let you get out early. Yeah. I think financial implications sometimes are why, physicians think that they're stuck for a certain period of time. And we think about signing bonuses or student loan payments or, other things that they may have to pay back. How do those interplay with the term of the contract?
Yeah, I think it's big because depending on, like you said, sign-on bonus, recruitment incentives, there might be a 2-year, 3-year repayment obligation. So there's always these strings attached to if you're going to terminate, without cause and whenever you would want to decide to terminate. So there are always, those strings attached that you want to kind of consider those, repercussions. But that kind of goes into that decision-making process on when or how you want to maybe renegotiate the contract or what that would look like if you actually did want to separate.
Yeah. Do you find that those repayment terms line up with the initial term? Like, is the signing bonus always 2 years of forgiveness if the term is 2 years, or those vary?
It can, but I often see them vary. Okay. So you definitely want to look at the contract to see what it looks like, especially if you have a higher sign-on bonus. More often than not, there might be a larger term for the repayment period. So it's definitely good to look at both of them.
Yeah. So it might be a 2-year contract that automatically renews for 1 year at a time. But if the signing bonus is, let's say, $100,000, right? It's a big number. That might be forgiven over 5 years. Sure. And so those timelines don't always, they don't always line up necessarily 1-to-1. So I guess with that in mind, right, and with this ability to terminate without cause, really whenever you need to, how often can a physician renegotiate? If they're in mid-contract and they say, hey, I don't like something, or I want to get an increase in my comp, like what do you advise?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's theoretically whenever you feel like there isn't something that's working. I mean, I think that's where realistically with that termination without cause provision, you should be able to kind of look at the terms of your contract and be able to renegotiate when things aren't going well, whether it's, call obligations or your compensation or certain factors like that. And I think even, kind of reevaluating that every couple years or so is a good process or a good practice. Because often with the automatic renewal, the employer isn't going to set up a renegotiation process. It's just going to keep on going. So it's kind of on the provider to kind of spark that conversation.
Yeah, I always joke with clients that if for some reason reimbursements fall, right, or they need to make a change because your volumes are low, they certainly will come to you with an amendment to say, hey, this isn't working out. We need to change your work RVU rate or your base salary. But if it's the other way around, if you're really productive or reimbursements going up, they almost always are silent. And so you're gonna have to raise your hand as the physician to say, hey, I think it's time to talk about my comp.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of the majority rule, right? Is that you almost always can get out early, which means you can always renegotiate whenever you need to. In a situation where you don't have that ability, which is rare, but let's say you are locked in for 2 or 3 years. Sure. What's the risk that you've seen for clients that are locking into contracts like that?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest risk is that you're locking in, like you said, for 2 or 3 years and you don't have that ability to terminate. You're kind of risking, hey, if things aren't working out in the practice, you're kind of stuck in that situation. And so if you don't have that ability to actually terminate the contract by the terms of the contract, you're technically breaching the contract, and then you're opening yourself up for liability for, whatever, you might, the employer might want to pursue in terms of that. So you're just kind of opening yourself up for kind of that unknown, for you don't really know what's going to happen. Yeah. Sometimes there can be that mutual agreement to kind of terminate, but more often than not, you don't have a lot of leverage if you don't have that ability to terminate the contract. Yeah, and if you're looking to renegotiate midterm and you don't have any mechanism to get out, I mean, it doesn't give you much leverage, right, with the employer, because they're going to say, well, let's wait for another year and a half. And occasionally, I mean, there's some specialties where comp changes quite a bit, year to year. We've seen that in the last year with like anesthesia, radiology, where, offers coming out are, maybe 6 figures even higher than the median at times. And so if you're in that situation, you do want to renegotiate early. So, okay. Well, I guess closing thoughts and takeaways from our discussion. 1, check your term, check if it auto renews, but more importantly, check your contract for termination without cause, because if you have that, you're really on like a 2 to 4 month rolling contract anyway. It feels more at will at that point, which means you can renegotiate whenever you need to. Yeah, I think that's perfect. Cool. Well, thanks for coming on. Yeah, thanks for having me. You bet.